Every year here at Remake This Movie Right, we like to take a couple of horror films and remake them correctly. Well, this year, our film has already been remade once, but it was done, in my opinion, rather poorly. So we're here to rectify that mistake, and we're going to take on the ultimate faceless killer, Michael Myers, in Halloween. That's right, we're going to do what Rob Zombie couldn't, and we're going to remake this movie right. Hello, my fellow cinematic architects, and welcome to Remake This Movie Right. We are a member of the Hollywood Outsider Network. Listen to episodes of Remake This Movie Right on iTunes, where reviews are appreciated, your podcast app of choice, or just visit the website at remakethismovieright.com. Remake This Movie Right is a show that takes an original film that has an actual remake, or in this case, sequel, reboot, whatever they're calling it, in the works, figure out what still clicks and what doesn't, throw a little bit of humor at it, and then we determine exactly how Hollywood should remake it. So by the end of each episode, we will have the remake ready to roll for Hollywood execs and presented to you in movie trailer form. We are here to tell Hollywood how to remake this movie right. I am your host, Darren Peterson, and joining me today, you might remember her from our Saw, which is our second of the Halloween remakes we're doing this year. Clue and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. She was on those episodes as well. She has an unnatural obsession with Nathan Fillion. Amanda Sink.
Hello. Thanks for having me back.
If you bring up Nathan Fillion for this one, you won't be back. Just so you know.
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not.
And a first-timer to our show, he does the excellent Triplecast podcast for Golden Spiral Media, which follows genres or talent for 3 shows in a row. It's an interesting concept. Cory Metcalfe.
Thank you for having me.
And I should preface, you are from Australia, so if you hear a little bit of Wolf Creek / Crocodile Dundee in there, that's where that comes from. That's where that stems from.
I'll try to avoid it.
Before we get into our remake, you want to tell people what Triplecast does real quick?
So Triplecast is a film discussion podcast where we take a theme and then discuss 3 different movies that sort of relate back to that theme. So at the moment, we're discussing films based on true crime, and we're discussing Psycho, Zodiac, and The Strangers, all films that sort of derive from true stories and sort of become their own thing. And we've been doing this for maybe 4 years, 3 years with me as the full-time host of the show. And it's a lot of fun. It's a great concept. And I have to give it up to Daryl Darnell over at Golden Spiral Media. He was the one who really got me into podcasting and gave me this show, and I kind of ran with it. So, yeah, it's always a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. I was a guest on when we talked about the greatest movie of all time, Rear Window. So I can appreciate it.
It sounds really interesting.
It is. As long as they never actually remake Rear Window, I can enjoy that episode.
I won't be on board for that. I won't be on here for that episode.
They tried it once. It didn't work. Yeah,
with Christopher Reeve. Remember that? Christopher Reeve did it. Wasn't fair because you couldn't even say anything bad about it because it's Christopher Reeves in a wheelchair. That's not. Okay, well, for this episode, we are going to try and do what Rob Zombie failed miserably at. We are going to remake Halloween right. I even lost a little bit in my voice when I said it because it's sacrilege.
How does that taste coming out?
Oh, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't. For those 3 of you that have never heard of Halloween, the movie, it revolves around 6-year-old Michael Myers, who kills his sister on Halloween night in 1963, dressed in a clown costume and a mask. 15 years later, he escapes from Smith's Grove Sanitarium, finds William Shatner mask, and heads back to Haddonfield, Illinois, to kill a few more teens, including, we only come to find out in later films, his sister, Laurie Strode, played by the great Jamie Lee Curtis. The only person who seems to understand that Michael is a psycho is the psycho named Dr. Sam Loomis, played by the late and great Donald Pleasance. Later films brought in Michael's niece and also brought Laurie back after they decided to reboot the, I would say at that point, Wailing franchise. So, or Waning, not Wailing. It wasn't, nobody yelled except the people getting killed. Waning franchise. We're going to talk more about that here in a second. If you have your own pitch or thoughts on this week's show, please email us at remakethismovieright@gmail.com. It's remakethismovieright@gmail.com. And before we get into it, let's hear a little clip from the original classic Halloween.
Oh, Laurie, scared another one away.
It's tragic you never go out. You must have a small fortune stashed from babysitting so much.
You guys think I'm too smart.
I don't. I think you're wacko. Now you're seeing men behind bushes. Well, home sweet home. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Excuse me,
Oh,
Laurie.
Mr. Brackett, I'm sorry, Mr. Brackett.
Oh, I didn't mean to startle you.
Oh, it's all right.
You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh?
Okay. Now, I'm going to go through a couple trivia bits before we get into what we loved about the original movie or movies, because there's like 40 of them. And but before we do that, there's some trivia. I want to see who knows what. You guys ready for this?
I'm ready for this. Play the song.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Halloween was produced on a budget of $300,000 and grossed $47 million at the box office in the United States, $70 million worldwide, which is equivalent to roughly $260+ million as of 2016, becoming one of the most profitable independent films of all time.
Did not know that.
Wowza, I believe.
I believe it. Just didn't know the actual numbers there.
A couple more. One I thought was really interesting. John Carpenter and Deborah Hill wrote the film, with Hill saying that the idea was that you couldn't kill evil. And that was how we came about with the story. We went back to the old idea of Sam Hain, that Halloween was the night where all the souls are let out to wreak havoc on the living, and then came up with this story and about the most evil kid who ever lived. And when John came up with this fable of a town with a dark secret of someone who once lived there, and now that evil has come back, that's what made Halloween work.
I agree. I mean, if you go back to what Halloween actually originated as, they used to actually sing songs about exchanging cakes for their soul.
Cakes?
Soul cakes.
Soul cakes?
Soul cakes. They used to actually, when they would knock on the doors, they would actually sing a song about exchanging the soul cake.
That does not sound tasty at all.
And it was children, and then it ended up turning into the trick-or-treating as we know now, and then trunk-or-treating and all of that, but it was originally about trying to avoid that, and it was
soul cakes.
Yes, soul cakes.
I'm kind of hungry.
If you research it, or if you look up like history.com, it'll have all the information on it. It's really interesting to see how far Halloween has come, the holiday, and where it derived from, and the religion aspect of it and everything.
Well, how about the movie? It spawned 7 sequels, a remake, and a sequel to the remake, which both of those were awful.
Sure
I'm
were.
I'm just saying, the sequel to the remake was actually worse than the remake. It's a weird thing. One of those sequels was Season of the Witch and had absolutely zero Michael Myers in it. Cory, you're kind of a film aficionado. Now, you remember Season of the Witch, right? And how that was a completely separate story. Did you like that concept?
No. Short answer, no. It is a bug nuts crazy movie. Yeah, they completely get rid of Michael Myers. Instead, the villain in that is the Irish, who want to attack you with microchips and pieces of Stonehenge rock, which isn't even in Ireland. It is stupid.
But it has that awesome song. Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween. 5 more days till Halloween.
Is that enough to redeem it, though?
I don't know, man. If I hear that song, I know it's Halloween time and I want to kill somebody. So there's something. Fun little fact on the mask. A lot of people don't know this, which I'm shocked that I still meet people that don't know this. Due to its budget, the prop department had to use the cheapest $2 mask that they could find in the costume store, a Star Trek William Shatner mask. They later spray painted the face white, teased out the hair, and reshaped the eye holes. Shatner admitted that for years he had no idea his likeness was used for the film. It was only during an interview that someone mentioned his mask was being used. He has since stated that he is honored by this gesture. Sure, I'd be honored if a mass murderer was.
I was going to say, I knew about the mask where it came from. I didn't know he was honored for it. I mean, I guess he's happy that they thought of him.
I think William Shatner's always happy when people think of him.
Well, it's definitely better than the alternative, because originally they were going to use an Emmett Kelly mask with a big, stupid clown grin on it and everything, to sort of harken back to when he was a child and he wore that clown mask. And I think, what they went with was infinitely better, just because it's a face that is faceless, and that's terrifying.
Yeah, I agree. I think the clown thing is still interesting to tie it back, though, to the childhood, but I think this does more of the scare factor without using the clown. I feel like the clowns kind of get overused.
A bit. Yeah, a bit.
especially right now.
Yeah, right now. They're just popping up everywhere in America. I don't know when the clown
Luring children into the woods.
Exactly. The clowns are a thing. Who knew? Okay, moving on. For years after Halloween was released, people would tell writer-director John Carpenter how horrified they were by Michael Myers' grotesquely disfigured face. Guilty. Glimpsed when Laurie pulls his mask off for a moment toward the end of the film. But actually, all they saw was the ordinary face of the actor Tony Moran playing the role, perfectly normal except for the small knife wound inflicted by Laurie during the struggle in the closet, which was created using special effects makeup. Carpenter cites this as evidence of the power of suggestion in cinema, that the audience saw a monster on screen, so assumed that he must look like a monster underneath the mask.
Basically, they all called him ugly.
I guess that's yeah, sure, that's one way to look at it. That's not what I took, but okay. Here's something that I know that Cory knows. John Carpenter considered the hiring of Jamie Lee Curtis as the ultimate tribute to Alfred Hitchcock, who had given her mother, Janet Leigh, legendary status in Psycho.
I love this bit of trivia.
Yeah, why do you love it so much?
It just ties in, like a little bit of cachet with the film. And I know that the Carpenter has said that he hired Jamie Lee Curtis on her acting talent, but just the fact that it sort of links back to Psycho in a tangential way, I think is very cool.
Does anybody know why Michael Myers was named Michael Myers? Anyone?
I believe it was the name of the film distributor for his first film, Assault on Precinct 13.
That's correct. Yep. That's how would you like to know? Basically, one of the greatest killers of all time was named after you, and yeah, I don't know if
I'd be honored.
I don't know. Would you be honored?
I mean, I guess it really depends on what you want out of it. If you want to have that connection, then that's interesting. I mean, to be able to say that you're connected to the film that's done so well, and that you were some sort of an inspiration, I guess it just really depends on how you look at it. I also don't want to be an inspiration for a serial killer either.
Not particularly. Not a big fan of that.
Going back to that last piece of trivia, though, that you had before this, I think it's really, different that somebody related to a Hitchcock film without pulling from the movie itself and trying to. They could have used Psycho and tried to remake it or something, or if they tried to play off of it, but instead they just found a character piece that would relate to it. And I find that interesting. I like that piece of it.
Yeah, there's several nods to Psycho throughout the movie, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
Last one. Proof that this wasn't a gore fest as far as I'm concerned. The only blood you see in the movie, because a lot of people think this is a really gory, bloody movie. It's not at all. You could let kids watch it. I mean, mature kids, probably. The only blood seen in the movie was when Judith Myers is killed, when Laurie discovers the dangling body of Bob Sims and the laid-out body of Annie Brackett, whose slit throat with its blood is visible. Body of the man Michael killed for his clothes after Loomis makes the phone call along the railroad tracks is also seen on Laurie's hand and arm when she escapes from Michael. So it's really not that gory.
It is minimal.
Yeah. I mean, by today's standards, it's not even, there's no blood.
Yeah, it's a great thing because it means that the movie is relying on its suspense, just as Psycho was as well. Psycho was kind of stymied by censorship boards. This was 1960, so really Hitchcock couldn't show a lot of blood, and he got around that in masterful fashion. And it just builds your suspense, and that's exactly what steering away from blood does for this film. Carpenter was able to sort of just infer what you should see, and I think people managed to accomplish that just right. It's like you were saying about his face. People thought it was grotesque. Really, it wasn't. And the way that Carpenter made this film just plants ideas in your head, lets you use your own imagination.
I think that's much more terrifying too, to let your mind wander and to put ideas into your audience's thoughts and how they're interpreting things and just letting the suspense take over rather than just showing a gore fest and blood everywhere and that being your source. Exactly what you're saying, that not being the source for what's scaring the audience. It's all based off of the suspense of it. And I think that makes it a much more tremendous film when you look at it from that perspective.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, the original. Let's go to the original. What makes this movie so notable, memorable, whatever the case may be for you, Cory?
I really like the idea that evil can get you no matter where you are. The perceived safety of suburbia, in a way. That's what really works for me in this movie.
Did you have any favorite moments? What are your favorite parts about the movie? Or setups or themes, however you want to look at it?
Definitely my end-all be-all favorite part of this movie is actually the opening 8.5 minutes. A big, long, Steadicam shot, which is the point of view of young Michael Myers, walking around his house, looking in the window, coming in the back door, going upstairs, murdering his sister, and then turning around so calmly and walking out the front door. The whole thing is perfect, in my opinion. It is a great way to open this film.
And disturbing, the fact that you have a 6-year-old child killing someone on screen, which, I mean, usually if you're going to have a kid killer, you never show the kid doing anything. You just it's always inferred. And then you see the dead body and, oh yeah, I did it. And you find out later, like the bad seed. You never actually see him, cutting her up. And he completely just bludgeoned her, gutted her. And it was just a very traumatic event, I think. To see a child do that was very insane.
Yeah, and it does take you to that, like I was saying, the perceived safety of suburbia. He's looking in windows, he's grabbing sharp implements. These are all just common things in a suburban neighborhood that you wouldn't think twice of. But this movie, especially in that opening, really subverts that safety and says, like, you're not even safe. Like, a 6-year-old can wander into your house and murder you. It's crazy terrifying.
And now I want to move. Thank you. Amanda, what are your favorite moments or most memorable moments?
Definitely, I enjoy that opening scene and for every reason that you just mentioned, Cory. But I also enjoy Michael as a killer for similar reasons, but other specifics, where he's walking around in daylight doing these things. We think of killers as those who lurk in the shadows at night from the street lamps, and that's about it. And that's where we see them, is just from little glimpses of light. We don't necessarily expect to have someone torturing us and taunting us and making their presence known in the middle of the day, in the backyard, in the neighbor's yard, behind the bush. Just all of those areas that you don't expect to see someone, because it's not common to have someone that willing to put themselves out there. That really instills a whole lot more fear in you, and it makes it prevalent to the character too. She's seeing it. It's not that we're just seeing him lurk around, we're seeing her notice him. And so I think that makes it much more terrifying, that he just doesn't have that fear within him. He doesn't care if he gets noticed. He wants to be noticed, but he doesn't want all of the attention. He just wants her to know that he's looking, that he knows where she's at, and that, he's coming for her, but she doesn't realize it at first. So that obsession and very realistic serial killer approach to it for somebody who is entirely after someone and they have no fear for them. So what could possibly stop someone who's not afraid of anything, who has nothing to lose? So that
Donald Pleasance, that's who, a short bald man.
But I mean, realistically, like that is realistic to us to be scared of. That is something that we can relate to. And exactly what Cory was saying, those instruments that he's using, the things that relate to us in our own lives, a knife that you can just grab, a 6-year-old child that can just be in your home. Those things instill that fear in you. And I think that's the biggest parts of Halloween that I like, is that it's very realistic, but it's still enough to take you out, escape. You're still being able to escape into the film, but you're still able to attach yourself to it in some respect.
You both mentioned Michael Myers as a character and his unrelenting nature. I mean, he's basically the shark from Jaws. That's really what he is. He goes forward. He's just there to kill. That's his. I always ask this question of people that are fans of the movie. If this was, I don't know, October 15th, would it be as scary? Because wouldn't the police be called and his whole thing would be over pretty quick? Because he only really has one day, maybe a day and a half, where he can walk around the streets with the mask on and nobody's concerned. What I mean, he's got a very small window to be a killer, is what I'm saying.
Well, he's also doing it in the middle of the day. And back then, I know that now trick-or-treating is done extremely early. It is
between
done
the
in
hours
daylight.
of 5 and 8 on some days.
Like 7. So it's still really light outside when it's happening. But back then, trick-or-treating used to be at night. It used to be when it was dark. That was what was so exciting about it. And so for him with the mask during the day on Halloween, it still would have been off-putting in that time, I think.
I'm talking about days outside of that. He can only kill people the 30th and the 31st. If he shows up November 1st, there's going to be ambulances, police cars. There's going to be a whole lot of action going on. He's not as threatening a presence any other day because, everybody's going to pay attention to him. He's really only unobserved or unrealized as a killer on those particular days, is all I'm saying. I realize the movie's called Halloween. I'm just pointing out, this guy's got a very small window to take out his friends.
Well, that's what makes this movie so genius in setting it on Halloween, is that, he can walk the streets wearing a mask because, sure, people may notice him, but they just look at him and go, that's just someone wearing a Halloween costume. It's fine. Like, he's not doing anything untoward, really. Outside of the scenes where you see, this group of high school girls, they're just talking, and you can have a shot where he's just following them. He's just walking down the street. He's not attacking them. He's not doing anything. So that's why it has to be on Halloween, because place this any other day of the year, people are going to go, who's this creepy guy walking around the neighborhood with this faceless mask on? Let's call the police because he is creepy as hell.
Yeah, he's a YouTube video waiting to happen.
I was going to say, it's going to be all over the news and YouTube in minutes.
There's going to be Facebook Live. Check this out. I'm with the guy wearing the Michael Myers mask. Okay, my favorite thing, I can't believe nobody has said this. It's the best theme in horror. It's literally the very best theme in horror. It beats Psycho. It trumps every other horror theme out there. You can play that song, that theme, and you get instantly creeped out no matter where you are. And if it's by God forbid at night, when you hear it, you're looking everywhere.
Right.
You're looking everywhere. Because I jog a lot, so I'll play a music mix and stuff. And every once in a while, when it gets in fall, I'll play a horror compilation. And when that song comes
like
on,
a bad time.
It is, but I like horror movies, so it's fun.
Gets you running faster.
It gets you running a lot faster, tripping over things. But whenever that theme comes on, I'm looking throughout the trees. I actually fast forward it half the time just because it's an immediately horrifying and suspenseful theme that sends you chills. It's one of the most beautiful pieces of movie music I can think of, honestly.
I agree. Totally agree. There's a really good scene in there where Laurie is standing in the house, and she's starting to walk backwards because she's extremely scared. Mm-hmm. And then the light hits just right. It looks like maybe he takes one. It doesn't even look like he steps forward, but obviously his face moves just slightly.
I think they used
the light.
Dimmer switch of the lighting. Yeah.
And you just see the side of his mask. You don't see anything else. You just see the partial of it, and he's just right next to her. And she's basically just walking into his trap. And I think those scenes, which they do in this movie so beautifully, are just another prime example of why it's so good and so successful, and why Rob Zombie screwed it up really bad.
He even messed with the theme. He should be punched for that, too.
He basically just took the property name and tried to run with it.
We'll get into that here in a minute. Donald Pleasance and Jamie Lee Curtis also, they were both extremely natural in their delivery. I mean, I know Donald Pleasance had a storied career, but I was just a little baby when this thing came out. So I didn't see it when it first came out. I saw it in the early 80s, I think. And I knew him from Escape from New York. That's what I knew Donald Pleasance from. And in that movie, he's a jackass. So I really went into the movie not liking him as a person or as a character. And then I watched the movie and I'm like, wow, he's really good. He's so much stronger than I thought as an actor. And Jamie Lee Curtis, I think she even gives herself, she didn't think she was that good originally in the movie. I think she's such a natural person. Like she's really, for the most part, smart as far as the characters, especially at that time, went, because they always did dumb things. And she, as soon as she saw a killer, she got out of that house. She left that house.
Yeah.
The only reason she ran to that other house is because those kids were in there. So she was trying to protect those kids. And I mean, just everything she did was a fighter and a natural survivor. And it wasn't just cheap and lazy heroine stuff where they basically get away from everything with luck. I think she was a fighter, and that's how she escaped. It was just, I just loved how she played that character in subsequent films as well. She's the best thing about the sequels.
Yeah, she didn't. Yeah. They didn't dumb down her character, which was extremely nice.
Yeah, if anything, they made her character stronger, especially in Halloween H2O. Like, her character really had a good arc in that movie.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I really enjoyed that, even though they ignored the niece. It's like, the niece never happened. What? Continuity out the window.
Nah.
So what doesn't work anymore? If you rewatch it, is there anything that doesn't work for you, Amanda?
I still think it's a level of perfection. So it's really hard for me to look at it and see what needs to be changed because I look at it with such high esteem. But I think it really just could be modernized. I don't necessarily think that there's anything that needs to be changed with it. Like I'm just saying, it just needs to be updated a little bit to modern times.
All right, Cory, what about you?
Well, I can agree with Amanda on that one. It does need to be modernized. I'm definitely not one to say that a horror film can use more gore, but I think Halloween could definitely use a little bit, and, not to the extent that, say, Rob Zombie did for his remake or any kind of torture porn like that. But in this film, whenever you get like Laurie being sliced down the side of the arm or something like that, it is really quick, relatively bloodless. And I think it could just have a bit more of an impact if maybe you just had those slight injuries, maybe hit home a little harder.
Yeah, you brought that one up. That's really one of the most annoying scenes in the movie for me. It's really annoying because you've got... Okay, Laurie's going to check on her friends, and she goes upstairs, and she's just standing there. And Michael's right behind her, right? He's right behind her.
Oh, yeah.
She has no idea he's there. And all he's got to do is basically move forward with a knife, and she's dead. And he somehow completely misses her and catches her arm. It's the dumbest scene. Worst killer ever. Knocks her over the stairs. I'm like, what?
First of all, how did she not break her neck when she fell down? Because she went completely backwards. She ended up landing on her back. Her head looked like it moved a little.
Let's focus on the fact that he completely missed her. He whiffed the easiest kill he has in the whole movie.
What if it was intentional for him? What if he was one of
I'm kind of bored. Ridiculous. I got the whole night. Let's party.
Well, what if it's just one of those things where he wanted her to realize that he was there? And who he was, and that he was going to kill her. He didn't seem to
want her to realize that the other 12 times he almost killed her.
I'm just trying to give an excuse here. Let's just roll with it.
I would be happy with that too. Like, he toys with her a bit. But yeah, like I said, if it was just a bit more impactful, maybe he actually gets her or something like that. Just he doesn't hit like a vital artery or anything like that. But he really gets her, and you can get that pain to say like, he's saying like, I've got you. But she is going to fight regardless, and I think it would just really impact a lot heavier.
Okay. All right. That I would agree with that. Anything but completely missing the shot. It's like watching a sniper
tear her clothes.
He's a sniper with a 100% still target, and he misses it, and he's going for the stomach. It's like you couldn't get a better opportunity. You literally just blew it. Shame on you.
Then you could play that dichotomy back on the killer, Michael Myers. He too, even though he may get stabbed or poked in the eye with a coat hanger or whatever, he is still going to come at you.
Stabbed in the neck.
So you say Laurie can do that, Michael can do that, and Laurie's is more out of strength, whereas Michael's is more, supernatural and unstoppable. And they would play off each other very well.
I like that. I like it. The only other thing that really bugged me is Annie's death scene. Is it Annie? PJ Souls? Was that her character? Or that wasn't Annie. Was it Annie?
No. No, that's...
what's her name?
I'm mind blank now.
Hang on. I'll edit it so it sounds like I'm smarter later.
I thought that...
It's Linda.
Linda? Is it Linda? That's PJ Souls? Okay. I'll do that again.
Linda.
Okay. I'm trying...
You weren't ready yet.
Yes, I was.
Well, you're ready now.
The only other thing that really bothered me was Linda's death scene, where he comes in his little ghost outfit, which is really cool, and then he strangles her, which was not cool, because I'm not knocking you, PJ Souls. I'm sure you're a wonderful actress. I liked you in Stripes a lot. but that was some bad acting. I mean, it was just
Perfect.
a little, perfect. Perfect
Yeah.
is the word I was looking for.
No, I meant your impersonation of it.
I know, spot on, right? I mean, it sounds just like her. So that's about the only other thing. It is one of the rare perfect horror movies. I don't think there's much wrong with that movie. I know people will look at it now and they'll find stuff wrong with it. Good for you. I don't. And I won't find a better theme, I don't think, in my lifetime for a horror movie. So it's just beautiful. So the question goes to, should this movie be remade or should it be placed in don't touch status, Cory?
Well, I think the fact that the film has already been made, been remade rather,
Mm-hmm.
kind of places it in don't touch territory, because can you really remake it for a third time? I think having a continuation or reboot or something like that would be more appropriate at this stage.
Well, I mean, ask Spider-Man. They just keep rebooting that one about every 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, but Sony can't even hold on to creative rights for Spider-Man. So I don't know if that's a good template to go by.
True story. Amanda, do you think it should be remade? Or don't touch status?
It's very much a don't touch, but if it's going to be done, I just want it to be done by the right person this time. I just want it to not suck.
I think it's gotten to the point where it's fine. It's decades old, and the other remake is one of the worst. It's not just remakes, one of the worst horror movies ever. It's just a bad movie.
I think I would probably say not at all if the remake hadn't been attempted yet, but since it has been attempted, it kind of puts it into, can we at least try to have a remake that doesn't suck so bad?
That would be nice. Something that reinvented and doesn't basically puts Jason in a Halloween movie. That's basically all that was.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even done well. Okay, so any thoughts on any of the sequels or remakes before we move on? I should ask that. Anybody have any thoughts on the sequels? Cory, I know you're a big fan of this franchise. Is there any thoughts on the sequels or the remakes you want to mention?
Well, this is the interesting thing about Halloween, is that they've gone down a few different paths, and in my opinion, not many of those paths led to anything good. We mentioned Halloween 3, which completely got rid of Michael Myers. Not a good choice at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then they bring back Michael Myers, but they sort of stick with the formula of Michael going after his family, because like you said, we find out in number 2 that Laurie Strode is actually Michael Myers' sister. So by the 4th one, they have a little girl, his niece, who's Laurie Strode's daughter, and he's going after her. And that's a little weird because she's not a teenager, she's a little girl. And, you know, no offense to her, I think she did very well over the 2 movies that she was in. And then the character was killed off by the 6th one, spoiler alert, in very unglorious fashion. Which, at that point, they start getting into, like, druidic cults and constellations and things like that, and it goes just like too much crazy explanation. So that path doesn't go anywhere either. And then they finally bring back Jamie Lee Curtis for Halloween H2O. Excellent film. And then they throw it all away by doing this found footage type movie in the Myers house to sort of rip off Blair Witch in a way, and that is terrible. So we know there's a few paths that Halloween can go where it just leads to utter trash.
and Busta Rhymes. We can bring Busta Rhymes back. How about that?
Yeah. Trick or treat, motherfucker. I mean, come on.
Oh my gosh.
That's hysterical. Amanda, any thoughts on the sequels or anything? I don't know if you're a big fan of the rest of them.
He's kind of touched on everything I would have touched on. So there's a couple good ones, but the majority of them probably shouldn't have gone the way they did. Obviously, the Rob Zombie version was horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. I would not recommend it to anyone ever. It stands next to Lady in the Water for me, but
wow,
it's pretty bad. But I mean, there's so many opportunities for every movie, no matter what it is, when there's creative minds who actually aspire to make something worthy and have the film's heart in mind when they decide to do the project, then it can go somewhere good. But I think it's just a matter of making sure you have the right people looking at it with the right lenses, if you will.
Yeah, I really loved 4. I know it doesn't get much attention, but I really loved Halloween 4. It felt like a return to roots for me. I like the idea behind part 3. Like, I legitimately liked the idea. I thought Halloween 2 had kind of done what it needed to do. It told that story. That story was kind of done. Michael Myers and his sister, that story was done. So they wanted to go a different direction. Maybe we can make different movies each time where we take on different things. I just think the story they chose was just god-awful. Mm-hmm. But the concept behind it, making different movies centered around the holiday, I thought was a really cool idea. Right. But unfortunately, I think people just want to, if you're going to see a Halloween movie, they want to see a Michael Myers movie. And that's just the way it is. I thought H2O was a fun send-off for Jamie Lee Curtis. And then she sold her soul for a cameo in like the next movie where they kill her off. I'm like, why did you even bother? I'll never understand that. Why did you even bother? But,
so unsatisfying.
Wasn't it? And it was frustrating. I mean, if she would have just stayed out of it, that would have been fine with me.
Right.
But just coming back at all, I just thought, oh, God, it was awful. I mean, you chopped off the guy's head. There's no coming back from that. I don't care how supernatural you are. You can call you the Shape all day long. You're not that special if your head comes off, you know.
Yeah, they totally Evil Dead to it and just retcon the hell out of it. Mm-hmm. And that's what's really most insulting about Halloween Resurrection is that they bring back Laurie Strode just to have her killed. And then they deliver us an utter piece of garbage movie.
Was her death in Resurrection or The Curse of Michael Myers? I always get them. I thought it was, maybe I got it wrong.
It was Resurrection right after Halloween H2O. Okay. Was Resurrection.
Okay. Yeah. Well, there's so many damn ones. I can't keep them straight anymore. I know it was one of those too. So was the Busta Rhymes movie. That's what we call it. The Busta Rhymes movie. Yeah.
Insulting is a very good word for it.
It was very insulting. I'm good for her. I'm sure she needed the money, and I love Jamie Lee Curtis. I mean, she's great on Scream Queens. She's always been one of my favorites, so whatever.
Yeah, such a guilty pleasure, Scream Queen.
It sure is.
It's so good. So good. All right, let's hear another clip from the original Halloween.
The driveway's a few hundred yards up on the right.
The only thing that ever bothers me is their gibberish. When they start raving on and on.
You haven't anything to worry about. He hasn't spoken a word in 15 years.
Are there any special instructions?
Just try to understand what we're dealing with here. Don't underestimate it.
Don't you think we could refer to it as him?
If you say so.
The compassion's overwhelming, Doctor.
Okay, guys. Now here's what we know about the next Halloween film, which will be coming out in 2017. It's basically John Carpenter. John Carpenter is returning. He's partnering with Trancas International, Miramax, and Blumhouse Films, who have done wonders with horror the last few years. They've done a lot of great stuff. They've done Lights Out. They did Paranormal Activity. They've done a lot of great things. They're going to co-finance this new feature, which already has a lot of people attached to it, including John Carpenter. He's going to return to the franchise, and he says, 38 years after the original Halloween, I'm going to help to try to bring the 10th sequel, or try to make the 10th sequel the scariest of them all. So he kind of considers the remake and the remake sequel to be sequels, which is weird, especially since him and Zombie apparently don't get along very well. He just recently blasted him on social media. No word yet on the story other than it will be a sequel, but we're going to go ahead and just do our own thing. Since Zombie already screwed it up, we're going to do our version. So as we are prone to do, we're going to settle every vote by a best of 3 vote. If you've never listened to the show before, basically we're just coming to decide what is the best way to take a Halloween movie, a remake, reboot, spin-off, however you do it, whatever direction we decide to do it. And anything that we want to debate upon, it'll be settled by a best of 3 votes. So if 2 hosts agree on it, we move forward. We go with that idea and move forward. We're making one movie, not several. Each host is given 1 cut per episode. So if 2 people agree on something, but you're like, no, my idea is better, yell cut, and we have to use your idea. But you can only use it once per episode. Everybody understand the rules?
Understood.
Got it.
All right. Cory, you're the first timer. We're going to start with you. How would you modernize, reboot, however you want to explain it? How would you do your version of Halloween?
Okay, so to start with, I think Michael Myers does have to come back. Mm-hmm. He needs to be reintroduced in a modern setting, of course. But I think beyond that, I would even consider putting in a second killer. Maybe an unknown as a kind of Scream way of doing it, you know? A mask with somebody behind it who we don't know. Because a thing that I really loved about the original is that Michael was actually referred to as the Shape.
Mm-hmm.
He is credited as the Shape, not as Michael Myers. And he is a force of evil, an evil who has taken form and is relentless in his attack. And, I did consider thinking, can we take Michael out? They tried that with Halloween 3. Didn't work so good. Hardcore fans want to see Michael Myers. But I think if you have a second killer who is unknown to everybody, it might add another level of suspense.
Oh, I think I could see that if you... And keep in mind, guys, this is how the show works. If you've never listened before, that's how it works. We just kind of it's basically like a bunch of fans trying to debate what they want to do.
Sure is.
I could see that working in terms of you have people that offer the exposition. You have a modern Haddonfield, because I think you stick with Haddonfield because that's the town that was terrorized all of those years ago. Since they've already retconned half the damn franchise, you basically just say that the first two movies existed and go from there. That happened so long ago. It's been a long time. So he's become legend. He's become a folktale. But they never found the body of Michael Myers. Everybody basically paints the picture that he's still out there somewhere, something like that. And one Halloween night, you see a killer that is wearing a Michael Myers mask, is wearing the same William Shatner mask, that is terrorizing kids or teens or whatever in this town. And as it plays out, you find out that the killer is actually one of the kids. So that would be your Scream connection, as you call it. But near the end of the movie, you would have to have a reveal that basically, as he's almost at the person that, whoever the person is, and you can have it a relative or not, I don't care. But as the killer gets to that heroine or hero or however you do it, then you find out, you see Michael Myers actually shows up and kills him because, I don't know, he's just been laying low. I don't know how you would explain that. That's the only way I could see it.
Well, I think that it would be best not to explain it at all.
Oh, that's
what would work best, is Michael's mysteriousness. If you start explaining things, it falls apart. The sequels are proof of this.
What about? I like that. That's an interesting concept. What did you come up with, Amanda? Anything?
So my idea was to still kind of keep it with the siblings thing. So let's say, and this may frustrate you guys or make you mad, I don't know, but don't hate me yet. So let's say that the parents die in some horrendous tragedy, where they actually do get murdered, not a car accident, but they actually do get murdered. And Laurie and Michael they're near ages, so they're not far apart with their ages. Mm-hmm. And they end up going to an orphanage, but Laurie gets moved in. She gets picked by a family. They just want the one little girl, so they don't want Michael. Mm-hmm. So Michael gets left at the orphanage, but then she gets taken and she has this great life, and he's able to kind of follow that, and he's kind of followed her path in life, and he ends up just to who he is to his core, which would instill some fear into you. He's just a very angry and spiteful person. So he decides to get revenge to her, either by when he turns 18 and he leaves, or if he escapes, whatever it may be. And he seeks out to kill her, same as the original story. He wants to kill her. But as he leaves the orphanage, you just get a shot of all of the kids that are in the orphanage dead. He's stabbed them all.
All of them?
All of them.
Jesus.
Or at least like all in his area, his floor, whatever, because it's, but basically it's more of a revenge to his sister, but it gives you that twisted aspect to him. And it doesn't give you the explanation of everything, because I do like that he has mysteriousness to him, mm-hmm. but definitely has his one obsession of getting rid of his sister, because she has had this wonderful life and he's been stuck in an orphanage, and you get to see glimpses of his life where he's been destroyed and all of those things. Or even if you have it years after he's left the orphanage and then he ends up going through hell and back, and you see those things that he endured, and that kind of leads him to the point of, I've had to deal with all of this and you've been able to be this princess. So then he goes after her.
Okay.
But it would take away from the original story of killing his parents
I like
and family in the beginning.
parts of your idea. I don't like... I think the Halloween remake already proved that too much backstory is bad news for Michael Myers. I like the minimal. But I do like they're at an orphanage, and so you see that they are brother and sister, and she goes away, however that happens, versus... I like that. Cory, what do you think about her idea?
It's an interesting idea. This orphanage, I mean, it would update it from something like a sanitarium or something, which is a very 70s aspect of the whole thing. These days, you wouldn't really refer to it as a sanitarium. It'd be more of like a hospital for the criminally insane or something like that,
Some nice
a hospital prison where people get the care that they need. So kind of, steering away from that aspect would be interesting. And an orphanage would make sense. Well, I guess technically not an orphanage either, if you're going to be politically correct. A children's home, maybe. But yeah, no, that would be an interesting aspect.
All right. And mine was, I'm much more, I guess, of a purist in that respect. I really went to the core of the original movie. I think you go back to the roots. You open with the killing of his brother or sister. I don't really care which character it is. But I did want the living sister carefully explained so that we don't have that. Oh, it just happened in the second movie because we need a reason to have a second movie. If you explain it, I think that helps. And then I also wanted to see him as a child go after Laurie as a child, and the parents just get there just in time. So we see his motivation. He just wants to kill his family. And then it would fast forward 15 years later, he would escape because he just found out that his parents died, and he knows his sister is out there somewhere, but she changed her name, and he has to find her because he wants her dead. Like, mom and dad are dead, there's only one left, I need to get to her kind of thing. And it's all alluded to. He never talks because I don't think Michael Myers ever talks. The most important thing to me were two particular elements. The theme has to return to its roots. That's very important to me. I don't want any more updating it, modernizing it, throwing frickin' red foo in it. I don't want any of that crap. I just want it to be the basic piano theme. And the other one is that I want Michael Myers to have that distinct personality where he's just a personification of evil. That's it. We never get the backstory, the deeply detailed backstory about how he's a hillbilly kid that was abused. It's so annoying. It's just a stupid, oh God, that makes me mad. But the thing I did want to modernize it with, I want him to move faster. I don't want the walking slow, plodding along, I'm coming after you. I want him to move like a human being, just as a killer. I want him to be relentless, but I want him to chase, lunge, a killing machine. I want him to go after people, and that people absolutely feel like they cannot escape. Because the one thing that I don't think plays today's audiences, there's been so many horror movies, there's been so many cliches. It's really hard to get that across without people just laughing at it. A slow walking killer gets laughed at today. I think if you update it, you have to have him move almost like parkour. I mean, almost that fast. Like he is lightning in a bottle, and he is lethal, and he will come at you and you cannot escape him. If he's got his eyes set on you, running doesn't do a whole lot. Mm-hmm. I just love that aspect of making him seem as dangerous and as horrifying as he looks, if that makes sense.
T1000.
Yeah, exactly. T1000. There we go.
A boost, a bit of a change. Same character, different style.
Yeah.
So what if
4.0?
And this is probably a reach. I don't know what you guys will think of it, but just let me know. So what if, with your idea, Aaron, if we have him as a child continuously going after Laurie, and so his parents decide to put him up for adoption, and that's what ends him up in the orphanage because he's continuously going after his sister and trying to kill her and all of that. So that's what gets him thrown in there, per se, because they think he'll end up getting the care he needs and another family can help him better or something like that. And so that gives him even more motivation to find her. But then it's not giving you an entire backstory of how he's had this torturous life. It's just who he is. He's tried to murder since he was a child, and that still remains
Well, in that respect, I think we do have to decide as a group here, best of three, so to speak. Do we go with it's an extension of the universe, or you have like Cory was suggesting, where it's basically down the road. It's okay. This happened a long time ago. Michael Myers is a killer, but really there's two killers. Do you go that route, or do you stick with the basic Michael Myers as the killer? I think we need to decide that before we move on.
I really like the idea of two killers just because I'm such a big fan of Scream, but I feel like that just tries to hit on Scream too much. Like, I feel like that hits more of the point of Scream than it does Halloween. Like, we would be trying to take the one of the biggest factors of that movie and trying to play off of that.
Cory, what do you think about the other concepts? Or are you pretty sold on yours?
I'm going to throw this out there.
Okay.
And tell me what you guys think. But how would you feel about...
I'm just kidding.
How would you feel about getting rid of the family connection between Laurie and Michael? Because that didn't show up until the second film.
Mm-hmm.
So having it be, back to the roots of the original, Michael just going after random people in suburbia. Like, there is no connection. There's no rhyme or reason for it other than Michael has escaped a sanitarium and is now just attacking people.
I like that. I'm fine with that if we can have a good reason to set, or a good way to set it up. Do you set it up would you set it up the same way as the original?
I think the suburban setting is important.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, and the idea that these are just young, innocent girls who have been tasked with looking after some children, I also think is kind of important. So the aspect of, innocence without any reason for them to actually be attacked kind of makes it a bit more terrifying.
Okay. Amanda, how do you feel about that?
I like keeping it in the suburban setting and making it more daunting for the people that are in that area. No one really knows who he's coming for. But I can be persuaded to move from this perspective. But I do enjoy that idea that even though we didn't know why he was going after her, we knew he was going after her. So if we still have him obsessing to kill one particular person, whether it's
like he just gets his eyes set on somebody.
Yeah, right. So it doesn't need to necessarily be the family member, but I feel like part of Michael Myers is that he is going after one person. We don't know why in the original, the first one. We don't know why yet, but we know he is going after her. And we can see that because she is the prime focus, and it's pretty much anyone who's touched her life, he's going after. If you get in my way, I'm going to kill you. He doesn't care about killing anybody else, but he does have his scope set on her. So I think if we still have one person in particular for whatever reason, even if
no reason,
even if it's
no explanation,
exactly, even if it's no reason, he just has one person that he is eyeing and he wants to get rid of that person for whatever reason. Maybe it reminds him of someone, and we don't realize that it's just what his reasoning would be. Reminds him of someone.
Basically, we just do the same movie, just update it.
Well, there can be different things that you can do with it, but I don't want to stray away from him going after a particular person, because I feel like the only thing that Michael has is his motive to kill one person. He's willing to kill anybody else, and it doesn't affect him, but that seems to be the only thing that makes his mind go, is killing one person, this particular person.
Do you make sense? It makes sense. I mean, that's more of a purist update. That's more of a remake, a purist remake of the original movie. That's a modernizing of the original movie. That is basically what the original movie was. The family connection wasn't brought in until the sequel, other than the fact that he killed his sister, his first sister.
Well, it's a tough call. Like, how do you link Michael to this specific victim that he's targeting? And in the original, Laurie Strode was the good girl. She was the one who was babysitting on Halloween. She wasn't sneaking around with her boyfriend like her other two friends were. Mm-hmm. That's the reason why they were taken out, because they were too preoccupied. They were dumping the kids that they were supposed to look after onto Laurie. So, I don't know, if you're going to modernize that, wouldn't it be interesting if the quote-unquote Laurie character wasn't necessarily, the good girl, the one who doesn't have sex? What if she is the one who has a boyfriend or whatever, and, she is a sexual person? And maybe that's what triggers Michael. You could set that up right at the beginning with his sister. Maybe his sister is the one who is promiscuous, and that's what sets him off, and sort of have the actual act of sex be the thing that makes him want to target them.
I like that.
That's interesting. I like it. As long as he has something that he's going after.
Well, and sounds like there's a little something he's going after is what it sounds like.
But I think that's really interesting to have that be his spark.
Trigger.
Yeah, his trigger.
That's a good term.
And I think it really ties back to older films back in the 70s and 80s where sex was kind of the thing that got you killed. It was. I mean, if you look at a lot of those horror movies.
It would play on people's expectations, right?
Mm-hmm.
You think, she's had sex, she's going to die, but maybe not. In this modern world, is that really a death sentence?
Right.
Who knows?
It shouldn't be. I mean, everybody else is doing it. Even Laurie Strode, she just didn't show it. She just didn't show it. So basically, now we're back to more of a purist remake. Is that where I'm hearing? It's just we're flipping the script of who he's targeting.
I think so. I kind of like that idea. I think having the family connection between Laurie and Michael is just, because that didn't show up until the sequel, that's not something that needs to be played with if you're going to do a proper reboot or remake here.
Yeah, I like that. Could we have something similar to what Cory mentioned, though? What I would like to see, because I really like the idea of toying with people's expectations. I think you go purist, right? He as a child, he catches his sister having sex, and he kills her. That was his trigger. That's why he was sent away to an institute, medical research facility, whatever the hell you want to call it today, because we can't call it sanitarium, because that's just bad. And you can, I don't even know, do you really need the doctor character, but I guess you need somebody to explain where he is now. You need some character to explain that. But I think you could explain that with a sheriff. I don't necessarily know if you need the doctor. I'm like, why is a doctor just hanging out with the investigation? He's got a gun with him. I mean, in this day and age, I don't know if that's going to fly. I just don't. But what I could see is that he escapes because of, for whatever reason, whatever the motivation is, he just escapes, or maybe he's let out. He hits his 21st birthday and he's let out. Mm-hmm. And so we all know that he is going back to his hometown of Haddonfield. You see somebody following or always lurking behind this group of characters, one of them being a Laurie Strode-ish character, but more sexualized, so that would be the quote-unquote trigger. But you never actually see Michael Myers. You just see like a figure always watching, but you don't see Michael Myers. You don't see the mask until... like at night, on Halloween night, like the last 30 minutes of the movie when the killing really starts, you think it's that lurkish figure, but that's actually just some creepy guy obsessed with the girls. And actually, the whole time that wasn't Michael Myers. Michael Myers finally shows up and kills that guy and then goes after them. Or maybe you see Michael Myers killing them off one by one, and then you see the shadow outside, basically, and you come to find out later that that's actually not Michael Myers that was watching them the whole time.
I kind of like that idea, and it would play in nicely to like the, like I said, like the T1000 version of Michael Myers. So you think we've got this updated Michael Myers who is quick and fast, and maybe a bit Scream-esque, but then we twist that and go, guess what? That's not even Michael Myers. This is somebody else. And now, Michael Myers shows up, and he is still that big lumbering force coming at you. And to kill the killer halfway through the film would also be very interesting.
Yeah, and he wouldn't even, like, that kid wouldn't be a killer. It's just how you would frame it, that he's always lurking. You see a shadow like
so
behind bushes. He's just always watching. Yeah, he wants to be part of that crowd, that group. He's actually a sad kid. It's like a sad...
But he comes off as a killer.
Because we never see his face on screen. We just see him standing, his body from like the shoulders down, like they did in the movie. You really didn't see him. And really had a mask on. You didn't see him. And then you could actually show people getting killed with Michael Myers in the mask, and you still think that was him the whole time. But then it's not. And then you see somebody bump into that shape, and it's like a huge misdirection where we think that's got to be Michael Myers just without the mask on, because we've seen him this whole movie in those clothes looking. And then you come to find out Michael Myers is right behind him, and that kid's dead. Or that kid could be, he could help save the girl for a little while before he dies, because boys always die in these movies.
Yeah, I think he
could end up
die.
being a good person.
Yeah.
Who is just a sad individual. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. I don't know if you guys like Cory. Do you like that? I don't know if you like that.
I don't know. I think it would be more fascinating if he was a killer. If he had his plans as the killer, and then the real Michael Myers shows up. I don't know. Is that too much of a stretch?
No, I mean, you could, and look at you got your idea worked in there somehow. That's fine. But he could have it that he heard Michael Myers escaped, and so they've always shunned him.
He tries to pretend to be
Yes,
Michael.
they've always shunned him from this group, so he's going to use that opportunity to take out the people, in his mind, that had wronged him. And then maybe he gets one or two of them before the real Michael Myers actually shows up.
And you think it's been Michael the whole time.
And you thought it was Michael the whole time. Yeah, you thought it was Michael the whole time. Come to find out, it's, no, the real Michael's now here.
Right. I get what you're saying now, sort of like the subversion of making you think that maybe we're introducing you to Michael as a person, no mask or anything like that, stalking people. But no, that's not Michael. It's kind of a bait and switch kind of scenario, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like
interesting.
Because he's a legend, because he killed his sister as a kid. He escapes from the
or is let out.
Or is let out. He's just let out. So people use that opportunity because, well, now I can use that opportunity. He's out. I'll use this opportunity to do what I've always wanted to do and kill these sons of bitches that never let me be part of the group. These bullies, whatever they are. And he gets a couple of them before Michael Myers finally shows up and is like, no, bud, give me the knife. It's my job.
And kills him
How about
off.
that? How about that?
I like that.
And
I
it
like
ties in all the concepts, so.
Yeah, it kind of does. Boom. Okay, if everybody's on board, I think we got a movie.
I'm on board.
Nice.
Does the girl live? Does the Laurie... Do we just call her Laurie just to pay homage to the original? Just Laurie Strode? We just change it?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay, and then if we do sequels, then we can consider if we want to. Hey, guess what? They were actually cousins. It's weird. That's weird. Okay, so if that's the movie, if that's the Halloween that we end up with, which I think is kind of a cool concept. So you got your two killers, Cory. We worked it in.
Yay!
But I do want to say, I know you said, but Michael's a big lumbering thing. I still want Michael to move a little faster. I like the idea of a quicker killer that can catch you, something like that. But who knows? We can do this however we want. So who's going to make our movie? Who's going to direct this obvious masterpiece? Amanda, got any ideas?
I like Fede Alvarez. I feel like he's been doing some good work, and I feel like he could be a good fit.
He comes up a lot.
He does.
What about you, Cory? You got anybody in mind?
I would throw out Jennifer Kent, who directed The Babadook.
Oh, snap.
Oh, that's a good one.
You got me. You won me. I've actually talked to her before. I did an interview with her. She is a wonderful person. Yeah, she's a wonderful person to talk to. Find that at thehollywoodoutsiders.com. Babadook. I did an interview with her.
Yeah, but she, with The Babadook, I mean, that's a movie that's all about sort of side of your eye kind of things. Is something there? Is it not there? Did I see what I think I just saw in that split second? I think she could really play with the suspense a lot.
Okay. Sold.
I'm with it.
All right, moving on. Characters based on our remake. We can recast the two leads, and I would say one would be the Laurie character, and the other one would be... Now, do we want to do a sheriff? Do we have a psychiatrist? Cory, do you have an opinion on this? How would you want to do the character that provides a lot of the exposition as necessary? Let us know how scary this boy's eyes are.
Yeah, I like the idea of having the sheriff character replace the psychiatrist character. In a way, you could sort of meld the two together, because a lot of time is spent in that original getting the sheriff up to speed, right? Mm-hmm. Where you could just get rid of that and have the sheriff, maybe he was a young sheriff at one, in the initial killing of Michael Myers' family or something like that. And he, it's a fair few years later, he's a bit more mature now, and he remembers the scenario and he knows what is coming, and he can be the voice of explaining about the killer.
I like that. Of course I do, because I suggested it. I like that a lot. Okay, so let's go with Laurie. Who's got a pick for lawyer? I've got one, but I'll let you guys. Cory, you got one?
I do. And it's not just because she's an Australian actor. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to throw out Mia Wasikowska. She played Alice in the Alice in Wonderland movies.
She's so good. Yes.
She's really good. And she did a movie a few years back now called Stoker. Yep. Which I think is kind of like Halloween if it was made as an art film.
Mm-hmm. That's with Nicole Kidman, right? Nicole Kidman was in it? Yep.
Yeah. And she was fantastic in it. So I think she could play like she can play mousy, but she can play strong as well.
Yeah. I was going to throw out, what's her name? Natalie Dyer from Stranger Things. She played the sister of the kids, or the one kid she played his sister. Do you remember? Nobody saw Stranger Things.
I didn't finish it,
but I'm on board. Amanda, who did you have? Somebody?
Sharni Vinson from You're Next
to play to be a like girl. She'd be 40 years
old.
old.
Well, my idea was she's like 30. My idea was to have Michael and Laurie be siblings around that age.
Oh, gotcha. That didn't work out.
Yeah.
All right, I'm on board. Mia. Mia's a good one. That'll work. So that's 2. Do you agree? Well, you don't really.
I don't have a choice.
You don't really care.
I could only cut.
Yeah, that's true. And he could
cut
have
this whole episode.
He could have a much older sister. Okay, so who's the sheriff? And you can call it Sheriff Loomis just to pay homage. I would say, honestly, I think that works. I might pick Kevin Spacey. I don't know why, but I've always had Kevin Spacey in mind for the Donald Pleasance-ish character.
I like it. I'm on board. I guess we should hear what you have for too, Cory.
Well, it was played by Charles Cyphers in the original. Later, it was played by Brad Dourif in the remake. Mm-hmm. So I think a departure from that would be quite interesting. And Kevin Spacey could bring something interesting to that part. I like it.
Yeah, and if anybody can do exposition and make it not boring as hell, it's Kevin Spacey.
Definitely.
Okay, well, nostalgic moments. Anything that has to be here, nods or direct or subtle or direct, either one. The theme has to be there. That's one. Anything else that has to be there? Any nods to the original?
I think the opening killing of his family, I think that needs to be prevalent. And it can be done differently, but I think it's a fascinating way to open up the movie.
I actually really like doing it from the kid's eyes. I always thought that was a cool concept.
A nice POV shot to pay homage to the original would be cool.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you'll need to have it on Halloween, and he's going to need his knife, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think not in terms of look, but more necessarily like the cinematography of it. Those shots where he is just lurking right next to his victim, and you just see, like I explained earlier, you just see that little glimpse of his mask, mm-hmm. and you don't see anything else. Yeah, and it looks like he just pops up out of nowhere, but then you realize that he's been standing there the entire time, and they just kind of back up into him. So I think that shot needs to be in there at least once.
I think you need a ghost killer too. You got to have the ghost cheat fool. I don't know why. That one was always so cheesy to me, and I just liked it. So.
I liked the idea of having your deceased friend laying out on the bed with.
Except, did he just carry a tombstone in the house?
That too.
And what? That's always one of those. What?
Maybe if he has like a whiteboard, he can just draw one.
That makes more sense. He draws a tombstone on the wall or spray paints it on the wall. But that was dumb.
Well, I don't know. Michael Myers was doing sort of like art installations before it was cool, displaying his murder like he's very proud of it.
That's true. But a tombstone, Cory. He got
with
a
her name on it.
And apparently the other people in the house didn't notice him dragging this up the stairs when they were like, hey, somebody in the house? No, that's just a normal thump we get this time of night when people drag tombstones up the stairs. That's normal. We get it all the time.
He also carved out a jack-o'-lantern and put that next to her, so he's got a flair for his artistic side.
Yeah, and he's got nothing but time. Apparently, he's just sitting there waiting for him to get done.
He's really fast.
No, they're having sex. He's like, I gotta do something. I'll carve a pumpkin. I'll go grab that tombstone, put it in the bedroom real quick. I got time.
But having said that, I like the idea of maybe entering a scene before the characters arrive and seeing Michael there, seeing the killer there, and he's sort of lurking in the shadows or hiding in the shadows, and you never quite know where he is. All you know is that he's there, and the characters in the scene don't know he's there. That, I think, could be played with all throughout the movie.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, we got one more clip from the original movie, so let's take a listen to the original Halloween. And there's not many clips you can use because most of the time it's like, ow! And we didn't have any of those. So here's another clip.
We have you. Close enough.
Here you go.
Seems to me you're just plain scared.
Yes. Yeah, I am. I met him 15 years ago. I was told there was nothing left. No reason, no conscience, no understanding, and even the most rudimentary sense of life or death, of good or evil, right or wrong. I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
Okay, now, as we get ready to close the show out, we always have a final pitch, and that is where we have the wonderful vocal stylings of Wayne Henderson from MediaVoiceovers.com provide us with a parody trailer of our finished movie. Hopefully, Wayne can put this whole thing together and make sense of it all. So without further ado, let's take a listen to Wayne Henderson tell us about Halloween.
Halloween night, a small Midwestern town. 6-year-old Michael Myers brutally murdered his sister. 15 years later, Michael is going home. A murder spree is about to begin in Haddonfield, and this is a different story than you've seen before. Someone is watching Lori and her friends. Someone is waiting in the shadows, and someone else isn't happy. Next October, grab your date's arm tight as director Jennifer Kent restores honor and horror to a timeless franchise. Halloween, the night he came home again.
Great job, Wayne.
Stellar work.
Great job. I am terrified to go outside.
Halloween will be fun this year.
Yep, that's a movie. That's a movie. Remember, that's Wayne Henderson, MediaVoiceovers.com. Corey, I think we have completed our movie. Where can people find you? Please tell them where they can find Triplecast and yourself in general.
Well, it might be quicker for me to list all the podcasts that I'm not involved in.
Okay. You can do that too.
But no, you can hear me talking movies over at Golden Spiral Media on Triplecast. I also co-host 12 Monkeys Uncaged for the sci-fi original series 12 Monkeys. We always have so much fun getting deep on that show, and I love a good time travel story. And speaking of which, I also co-host the Pod Doctors, Doctor Who podcast, the C Word and Orphan Black podcast, always great fun. And a podcast I am particularly proud of, the Rewatch podcast. We are currently covering every episode of Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. We just passed the halfway point on that. And we're also discussing all the films in the Alien and Predator franchises. So we always have a lot of fun over there. And we love to get listener feedback as well. So you can find me on all those podcasts. And follow me on Twitter at Cory Metcalfe, CoryMetcalfe.
Wow.
You're a busy man.
Yeah, you are.
Yes.
Man, I thought I had too many going on at one time, and you're like, I got about 12, Aaron. Yeah, nice try. And you do 12 Monkeys with Michael R., who was just on Westworld, correct?
Yes. And that was a good episode. I think you guys really put together an interesting concept for Westworld. But yeah, me and Michael, we discuss 12 Monkeys when it's airing, and we always have a good time there.
That's a very, very smart show. Very smart show. And by the way, that trailer for Westworld is probably one of my favorites, honestly. Wayne nailed that one. Boy, do we have that was a great. Great read. Amanda, where can people find you?
You can find me on other episodes of Remake This Movie Right. I also just did an episode where I guested on The Hollywood Outsider.
That's a great podcast. Big fan of it.
You can check that out. I'm going to plug in here for Aaron, the Beyond Westworld podcast. And also, I want to plug Scott Clark's. He's been on some remake episodes as well, and he's on The Hollywood Outsider, but plug his Gaming Outsider.
Why the hell are you plugging Scott Clark on this?
Because I want to endorse the man.
You want to use the window? This is your window, not Scott Clark's window.
No, but I do very limited podcasting because I have a busy schedule outside of it. So if I have the opportunity, I'm going to plug those who deserve it.
Well, I want to find out how much he paid you for that.
He needs to pay me more.
He does. Get a check. Okay, you can also find me at thehollywoodoutsiders.com, remakeismovieright.com. I also do companion podcasts for The Blacklist at theblacklistexposed.com and Westworld. It's called Beyond Westworld Podcast.com. You can also find it's Beyond Westworld in your podcast apps of choice and The Blacklist Exposed in your podcast app of choice. Go to any of those. I do way too many of them, but apparently not as many as Cory does.
Yeah, you can't ever complain with the amount of stuff he's got going on.
I feel like I'm wasting my time. I have too much spare time. I should go do another podcast. Is what
you need to do another 8 so you can catch up to him.
Yeah. Wow. If you have thoughts on this episode, and I think people will because it is one of the greatest films of all time. I'm not saying that lightly. It's legitimately one of the greatest films of all time. You can email us, remakeThisMovieRight@gmail.com. That's remakeThisMovieRight@gmail.com. Maybe you have thoughts on our pitch or you have a better idea. Either way, we'd love to hear it. Tweet us at RemakeRight. We're also available at remakeThisMovieRight.com. And we also have a Facebook group. You can find that. But please share the show on your social media outlets, Reddit, Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is. If you really enjoy this podcast, get the word out there. Tell your friends. Please let them know. And also give us an iTunes review. That really helps the show. Hop on iTunes. It'll take you 2 seconds. Just give us 5 stars.
I love the 5-star reviews. Definitely helps the podcast out a lot.
Absolutely. That's going to do it for this episode. Cory, thank you for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
Amanda, thanks for coming back.
Thanks for having me on. Cory, it was a great time talking with you.
Yeah.
And, well, that didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm never doing this with her again.
Yeah, that was great.
You should be honored to be on a show with me.
You should be honored to be on a podcast.
I should be honored that you have enough time to podcast with me here.
Right. Oh.
No, it's been great.
Okay, well, the credits have rolled on this remake, but be sure to come back for our next one. And the next movie you watch, remember that it will get a remake someday, and only you can make it better. Take care, guys.